on the Planning Board and the Juvenile Hearing Board. So our next item on the agenda is for our town clerk to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, please stand if you can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So good evening to my colleagues on the council and staff and members of the public, and welcome to this first meeting of 2021. I do want to interview our participants, my fellow members on the council, Councilor Karen Korenthal, Councilor Michael Donegan.
Hello.
Councilor Rainu Engelhardt.
Hi.
I'm Mark Schwager. Our other councilor, Michael Zarella, is not present tonight. We have from our professional staff, Town Clerk Lee Carney. We have our town manager, Andrew Nada. Andrew Tights is our town solicitor, and keeping everything running smoothly are Wendy Schmidl, our Director of Information Technology, and Don Parry, also in the Department of Information Technology. I hope I didn't leave anybody out. So we will begin our meeting tonight with public comment. This is a period of time when members of the public can make comments on any items that are not on the agenda, anything they'd like to bring to our attention. This is your opportunity. If you do want to participate, please click under the attendees tab to raise your hand. If you are on the phone, you would dial *9 to raise your hand and then unmute with *6. Are there any attendees tonight who would like to make a public comment? I don't see any hands raised, so we'll move on to our next item. This is item 5, consent calendar and communications. So we do have a lot of items on the consent calendar tonight, so I'll run through them and then we can pull off any items that the members of the council would like to discuss further. Otherwise, all of these consent calendar items can be addressed in one vote. Let me just pull this up for 1 second. Okay, so on the consent calendar, we have item 5A, minutes from October 26th meeting of the town council for approval. Item 5B, minutes from the November 9th regular meeting for approval. Item 5C, these are minutes from December joint meeting with the school committee. This was a regular meeting on our part, and we're going to vote on those minutes. We have some commendations tonight for people who are leaving our boards and commissions. 5D is a commendation recognizing Jason Gomez for serving 9 years on the planning board. 5E is a commendation recognizing Brian Warburton for serving over 3 years on the juvenile hearing board. 5F is a commendation recognizing Tricia Colgan for serving over 4 years on the juvenile hearing board. Our next item, 5G, is approval of a petition of the National Grid and Verizon New England for a joint or identical pole location on Middle Road. Item 5H, approval of petition of National Grid and Verizon New England for a joint or identical pole location on Maplewood Drive. Item 5I is the application for a transfer of a vittling license from Delphine Reinho, doing business as Simon Says Cafe, to Juan Perron Borofsky, doing business as Simon Says, located at 96 Main Street. All of the transfers of licenses, the town council serves as the board of license commissioners, and we have to approve those transfers. That transfer application has been cleared by the building and zoning official back on December 30th. Item 5J, this is a referral of a Superior Court summons filed by Bethany Higgins Parker versus the City of East Greenwich, and that would be referred to our town's insurer. 5K is a recommendation for from the interim tax assessor for abatements on 2020 real estate tax rolls totaling $10,557.56 for a granted appeal to the Board of Assessment Review and abatement to the 2020 motor vehicle tax roll totaling $49.88 in accordance with the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Act. Also, an additional $4,189.28 to the 2020 real estate tax rolls for proration of newly constructed properties at 28 and 34 Middlebury Road. Item 5L is award a bid to Motorola Solutions for purchase of 2 digital vehicle repeaters for the fire department in an amount not to exceed $30,000. This is grant reimbursable. I wanted to compliment our fire chief, Chief Bernie Patno, and the town staff in securing grant funding. This equipment will aid in the radio reception from the fire department, portable radios, and it's being bid out through the state master price agreement. So there is no charge to the town for this due to the grant funding. Items 5M through 5P are moving up members of some of our boards and commissions who are currently acting as alternate members, and due to either term limits or resignations, we're going to move each of these individuals from an alternate position to a regular member position. These are board members who the council has interviewed in the past. All of them we know and have interviewed, so we are not requiring them to be re-interviewed. So I'd like to see if any councilors have items they would like to have pulled off of the agenda tonight.
Yes,
Yes, Councilor Donegan.
I would like the recognition of Jason Gomez pulled off.
Okay, we shall do that. Any other items that we want to? Lost an item on my screen, I'm sorry. Yeah, I usually like to commend all of the people who have served on our boards and commissions. So I will take Jason Gomez, and why don't we also pull up Brian Warburton and Tricia Colgan so we can thank them. So if there are any other items that any of the councilors would like to pull off? I'd like the record to reflect also that Councilor Zarella has joined us, although he is not labeled as such, but
Tom Cruise.
he will change his name on the screen there. So welcome, Mr. Zarella. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Are there any other?
Let me change my name before you get the two of us confused, because we look.
We thought it was going to be Tom Cruise.
The real Renu Engelhardt, please stand up. So we will then. Why don't we vote on all the other items? I'll look for a motion to approve all the items on the consent calendar other than 5D, E, and F.
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Corenthal, seconded by Councilor Engelhardt. We'll take the roll call. Councilor Corenthal.
Aye.
Councilor Zarella.
Aye.
Councilor Donegan.
Aye.
Councilor Engelhardt.
Aye.
Mark Schwiger votes aye. The motion carries 5-0. 5D, Mr. Donegan, you have some comments on Jason Gomez.
I do. So I had the pleasure of serving with Jason on the planning board for a number of years. And, you know, when Mark mentioned earlier that one of the benefits we have in our community, and even as a council, right, is we get to look at all these talented people step forward, willing to serve. I mean, having Jason on the planning board, you know, with his engineering background, I mean, we're talking about windmills and what's the blade shear when a windmill blade flies, like, and he's sitting there calculating it. When we have any kind of engineering or people are just adding up columns, you know, Jason was always there going, well, excuse me, but the numbers, the 83 numbers in column 11 don't actually add up to that. Could you please help us with that? So it started out that way. And then as he developed, you know, like everybody on the planning board, even if you're not a lawyer, you end up sort of a lawyer. And Jason really did a great job. I mean, he spent the time and energy to master the statutes, you know, our regulations, the interplay of all of them at a time when the planning board was absolutely exploding from nothing during the downturn to we couldn't meet often enough. And he was great, always came prepared, always did a work ahead of time. So he knew where he was focused. And, you know, when he moved on to be vice chair, fabulous, took control, ran a meeting well, and then he was willing to serve as the chairman. and really during a challenging time, and I think made great contributions to our town. I was proud to serve with him, and I thank him for his many years of service. I only hope that he will take a rest and then come back out in another capacity, because we can certainly use his intellect, integrity, and hard work.
Well said.
Very well said, and I think it's really a compliment to Jason that a colleague who served on the planning board with him and who was a president of the chair of the planning board has such high accolades. And my interactions with Jason on the council were always very helpful, and his input is very much appreciated. A lot of time, effort, and energy. So thank you very much, Jason. I just wanted to also just say thank you individually to Brian Warburton and Tricia Colgan for their time and effort on behalf of our community. It's because of the volunteers on our boards and commissions that we're able to really provide such good services for our residents. So we really appreciate it. So I would look for a motion to approve the commendation on items 5D, E, and F.
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilor Donegan, seconded by Councilor Corinthal. Councilor Corinthal, we'll take a roll.
Aye. Aye.
Councilor Donegan,
Aye.
Councilor Engelhardt,
Aye.
Councilor Zarella.
Aye.
Mark Schwager votes aye. Motion carries 5-0. This takes us to item number 6, which is reports and presentations. We have 2 items today. We'll start with a report from our town managers on projects initiative, COVID-19, and public safety update. Mr. Nada.
Great, thanks, Dr. Swager, members of the council. Have a fairly lengthy report, and we'll push through it. Only a couple of major topics that I'd like to highlight for you tonight. The first being is that I'm fortunate to have been included, meeting was canceled today, but included in a group of chief executives for the 39 cities and towns to have a dialogue with Governor Raimondo. And I'm filling in some of the gaps. We do not have an agenda for that meeting that was supposed to happen this afternoon. It's been rescheduled to Wednesday afternoon. And what we would anticipate that conversation to be partly involved with is the transition plan for the governor that I think we're all interested in. And I think all of us can start to back our way into a timeline that might potentially impact not only the governor's office, but the legislature, state budget, and a number of other things. As we go forward, a couple of the things it could potentially impact is ongoing COVID response, some of the activity of our state, various state agencies, clearly budget development for the state on FY21, which has been delayed. The governor's office has provided with an extension back into the month of March, where normally that budget is due to the legislature earlier than that. And so there's going to be some impacts that we see. Hopefully all positive, and transition would be seamless is what one would expect. But also not only the transition of the governor to Washington in the role that she has been nominated for as Secretary of Commerce, but also for the transition of the Lieutenant Governor, Dan McKee, into the role of governor. So we're looking forward to both conversations, and I think this one will start on Wednesday, and subsequent to that, I'm happy to report back to the council on some of the initial topics and potential impacts that we see here for the town of East Greenwich. Second item, which is going to take a couple of moments, is a lot's been happening, continuing to happen with the state's COVID response. And so initially what I included tonight in everyone's packet is a COVID response presentation as provided by the Director of the Department of Health, Dr. Nicole Alexander Scott. I summarized in my report some of the highlights from that report that she presented recently to a group of municipal officials that I happen to be involved with. It really covers the vaccination process, including priority populations, timelines, and vaccination sites. And the reason why I keep raising these topics at meetings and then also one-on-one with council members and others in the community is the information continues to change at such a rapid pace. And we can see that even administratively in Washington, I think there's a hope of there being change once an administration shifts and to kind of refocus and reassess how we're doing nationally as a country and how the states are doing individually, and to see where we can make some potential improvements in the delivery of the vaccine and really tackling and curbing the impact of the COVID virus on all of us and our families and loved ones. In my report, is receiving approximately 14,000 doses per week, where we've been told through DOH officials that they're requesting the maximum amount possible. That's about 1.5% of the state's population. So that's coming consistently. So one thing that we've also been told through DOH is that we are not one of those states that is stockpiling vaccine. So as it comes in, it is going out. So where we are today in this process, we're facing tomorrow actually is our last day of our first round in the mid-state pod hosted here in East Greenwich for really critical healthcare workers, first responders, public safety officials, and really what has happened in recent weeks is a dramatic outreaching and a work through of that first class of prioritization in class number 1. So now we're getting to the point where we're down to the last couple of items that are listed on this sheet that we all have. So we're getting down to, we've worked through 1.1 through 1.3, and there are some loose ends that we're buttoning up, and we'll be doing that tomorrow. But then we'll be getting into 1.4 and 1.5. So what the state would prefer that we do is really work through the first dispensing and the second dispensing of those doses, those initial groups. And how I equate it to people that ask is it's, for me, it resonated like when you get on a plane, right? You get on a plane, and if you have someone sitting next to you, family member or other, that needs your assistance, whether it's an older adult or a younger child that might need, or someone else who just needs assistance, you're always better off on addressing your own needs first so that you have the ability to assist them. So what we're seeing in Rhode Island, in pockets and across the country, is I think the long duration impact, and we've talked about this before, of this particular emergency. So again, unlike any other short-term emergency where we activate our local EMA and support statewide, which is usually quick. It's usually a few days, a week or 2 weeks. We're done, the event's over, we're recovering and we're rebuilding. This has been anything but that. So we're seeing that based on the fact that this is an emergency that can have an effect on one's life, right? One's life and those of our family and friends and fellow residents and community members. That there's an added impact that comes from a prioritization schedule being developed. So I think, again, we're going to continue to try to educate the public and for just a better overall understanding of what we've done here in East Greenwich. And we've done something different than a lot of places have done. What I can say to you is that when we mobilize, we need to have professional personnel manage the site. So in doing that, we're utilizing the employees who work for the residents of this community to be able to manage that site and at the same time be vaccinated. And why that is the case is that we're trying to prevent from happening again what occurred in one of our departments, and that was the unfortunate impact of COVID cases within our own fire department, which really crippled that department, albeit a short period of time. Everyone was fortunate and has come back to work and are doing well. But I think all of us could sense the pressure that we were under in a public safety mode of public service. But there are a lot of other things that I think all of us take for granted, services that personnel manage. And I'll give you one example, and that would be at our wastewater treatment facility. That's a facility that has a handful of employees that are specialty certified in given areas where there is very little backup for them. So should we lose that group of personnel, we are going to have difficulty in servicing our residences and our businesses on a go-forward basis. Same can be said for public works, for parks, and our clerk's office with an upcoming election, board of canvassers, and any number of other, our planning department. We can go on and on and on. And so we've been able to actually complement the work at our local pod with the vaccination of probably close to 3/4 of our professional staff. So I think we're in an extremely strong position now on a go-forward basis as we roll out the vaccine over the next 3 to 6 months, the general public, that I am not anticipating a disruption of service as we go forward. So I think that was a very important piece. Not everyone, not every community has taken advantage of that opportunity. So I think we feel good that we've built into the process some resiliency, and we're in a better position to be able to deal with slight disruptions, because just like in the general public, not all of our staff have opted to, even if they had the opportunity, to be able to work at the pod, provide that level of professional support, and secure the vaccine. So, and we also can't forget we're one of 7 partners in the management of this pod. So the other 6 partners that we have also shared in that opportunity, should they have opted to take advantage of it. As we wrap up tomorrow, just a few comments about the pod itself. Is we're pretty much finishing up somewhere between 275 to 300 person average for the first 5 days, and we'll be finishing at about that average with the number of vaccine recipients tomorrow. That'll place us over 6 days in the vicinity of about 1,700 served. So we're now going to gear up for the second round of second doses. In Rhode Island itself, there's just over, as of today, just over 31,000 individuals have received the first dose, and we're up to about 4,600 in second dose. So we're going to take a pause for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. We'll reestablish the pod at Swift Community Center for second dose only. There'll be no more first doses issued there for the time being. We'll move into the second phase over January 25th and 6th, February 1st and 2nd, and then the 8th and 9th to address the needs of anybody who received their first dose. And so we'll work through that system with all our partners, set up a similar schedule. We're going to be able to, I think we've learned a lot, we're going to be able to accelerate slightly the process. And I think if anybody that visited the site would know, in the morning is the busiest, but once we're up and running, there's tremendous lag time, because we're processing individuals much faster than the 10-minute interval that the federal government wanted us to work with. So in the second round, we've been able to work with DOH to support a 7-minute increment. Most likely, I think, is when we get to the public pods, we should be able to move at probably a less than a 5-minute increment. And why that's important is because of the 10 vaccination stations, we can double or triple, with the appropriate inventory of vaccine, the number of people not needing any additional assistance. So we're looking at ways in which to fine-tune the system and be better prepared when we don't have the liberty of a closed pod, everyone pre-registered, all professional people who are familiar with the process, who have their questions answered in advance. Servicing the general public on such a large scale is a much more daunting task, because of all the unknowns and the uncertainties of the varying age groups and other medical challenges and other questions. The process will be slowed, so our ability to make up that difference just due to our own efficiencies is going to really be important, just to do it in a very professional and efficient way in the coming months when we have that opportunity. That's really, I'm going to stop there on the COVID and vaccination update. Happy to circle back with the council at the conclusion of my report to answer any questions. But I will say we do have the public reaching out. So all of our offices are receiving calls from community members of all ages, just kind of checking in with us, finding out what we're up to over at in our vaccination site, and wondering about what the process will be for things as simple as how they're going to be contacted, what the process might look like. And I think that some of those decisions have yet to be answered by DOH as they start to get a handle on what a vaccination process will be for, not for 2 or 5 or 10,000 people, but for hundreds of thousands of people that will make up the balance here in Rhode Island that have yet to be vaccinated. A few other points just for your edification is, one is Council President Swager and I had the pleasure of participating in a session this past Saturday with the Hasselfeld Institute for Public Leadership at Bryant. That's for which many of the council has participated in the past, the newly elected and existing official orientation. So we had an opportunity to talk about best practices and some recommendations just through the experiences that we've had that a new official. So I thought, Mark, it was well received, and I've got some good feedback from a number of people. I know that in following up with Mark after that, I think we both enjoyed it. It was a great opportunity to be able to give back and to help other officials that are, some of which are just starting out and trying to get a handle on where some of the resources that they may need in the future, where they reside, and kind of some of the experiences that both of us had. So that was an enjoyable experience. In addition to that, state budget wise, information really has not changed in recent weeks. As noted previously and at our meeting with the school committee, state aid numbers in FY21 are looking favorable at this point. Our projected, very early projected FY22 state aid figures also look favorable, but again, they are extraordinarily early and they are not based on the projected $400 or $500 million structural deficit that the state may be looking at as they prepare for FY22. I think the other point is that you're going to have some key probably budget and other governor's office staffing adjustments during the transition. So I think it's a little premature to really start talking too significantly about FY22. Although in speaking with Trish Sunderland, our finance director, we're still looking at a very favorable outcome in FY21 following a favorable result in FY20 that is significantly going to assist us going forward, not only in our unassigned reserve figures, but also in our capital improvement areas as we progress. So beyond that, I did start to build out in the last section of the report under other business. I've started to build out some of the things that we are working on. Some are staff specific and many of them are council specific, things that you'll be seeing come before you in the coming months, and highlighted some of the month of February. Mark and I were talking earlier today. Late January, February really starts to change. I think we've had a little bit of a break over the holidays and meetings have been somewhat streamlined. And I think that's going to come to a screeching halt as we start to look at a dramatic increase in the number of meetings, coordination on FY22 budget development, and as we finish up our FY20 audit, as well as a number of other initiatives that are now going to be coming back before you as we transition out of our sole focus on our COVID response, and we start to balance that in concert with a number of other priorities that we have going on. So I'm gonna pause there. Mark, happy to answer any questions or follow up with information should the council have any at this time.
Questions for the manager? Councilor Corenthal?
Yes, first of all, thank you, Andy, for taking on the COVID response vaccination situation. That is a huge undertaking, and I think the town really appreciates you doing that. As one who has been in my third quarantine, and I don't see anywhere where, I just didn't know if you had any idea when teachers might be included. I saw in your report, it said, February, March for people 75 and over. So I don't even see them on the horizon. And I get asked that question, obviously, all the time.
Yeah.
And, and again, so I didn't know if you heard anything.
Yeah, so a couple things is, one is we were able to coordinate in an earlier priority class all the school nurses.
Yes.
So we've been able to handle that group, as well as we coordinated with the superintendent and with DOH to make sure that we handled the core group of nurses, as well as all the substitute nurses that were handled. So something that has been started to be just bantered around, I think, with DOH is how individual communities are going to handle the educators that are out there. And so the way things are leaning, clearly always subject to change, are the districts where the community where the districts reside are ultimately going to be responsible for vaccinating the district. All personnel, everybody involved in the district would be handled. And speaking to Rose Emilio, our HR director, that number is somewhere between, based on part-time coaches and others that would also have interaction with students, probably just sub of 400 individuals. So for us, based on what we've learned on the dispensing, that's basically just an afternoon for us, based on a 5 to 7 minute interval. If we're able to register them in advance, I think we can push them through with, if we were able to manage 10 vaccination tables again, I think it's a 3, 4, 5 hour at the most process for us to be able to do that. So I think based on a lot of what we've learned, I think it's going to come down to purely inventory of the vaccine. That is it. That's the only thing that's left that's in the way at this point. So whether or not we house that at Swift or at Cole, which is our main approved MedPod site, doesn't really matter. And I think we'll also at that time be able to lean on our school nurses who are already vaccinated to assist us with those vaccinations. So, I think there's a lot of people, Karen, that hope that it's a February process and not a March process. And I have to believe, based on the accelerated pace that we're moving through these classifications, and based on there being, as we noted, it's positive pressure, but extreme pressure for residents of all ages and for educators and other professionals that are out there, that we remain very hopeful that the administration, federal administration, will be able to help accelerate that distribution. If that happens, I think it's not something we're contemplating. We will mobilize and we'll be prepared to take care of our school system as quickly as possible. So our hope is February. I think if we look at all the numbers and based on the vaccines trickle into Rhode Island, it might be more realistically a March process.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you for that report. I also wanted to just echo Councilor Cornthal's commendation on the way the town stepped up and performed. I had the opportunity to visit the point of distribution center at Swift Community Center, and it was really an impressive operation. And our town really stepped up and served a number of communities. A number of our town department heads participated. Our first responders, police and fire were there. Information technology did an amazing job with having all the computers and the software and data entry. And it was just nice to walk through and see so many town staff and department heads in place. I particularly wanted to thank the manager, Mr. Nada, who is our EMA director for the town. And we also have our deputy director, Fred Gomes, and our EMA specialist, Jim Fogel from Department of Public Works. So thanks to all of you. I think you really made our town shine during this challenging task that was assigned to you. So thank you again. I'd like to move on to item 6B. This is a report from our town clerk. She has had her fill of elections, but looks like there was another one coming around. So I'll ask Lee Carney to bring us up to date on the special referendum election scheduled for March 2nd, 2021.
Yes, hi, thank you, President Schwager. Yep, we have another special election coming up March 2nd, Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021. And in just a minute, I'm going to ask Wendy. I don't have any backup attached to the agenda, but a voter information handbook was just published, and I just got my hands on it today. So I'm going to share that with you. I guess now, Wendy, that would be fine if you can get to it. It's going to be handled basically like any other special election that we've had in the past. The State Board of Elections is currently anticipating a very low turnout, about 14%. So if we want to just scroll down here, one more right here is a good page. There's going to be 3 ways to vote: voting from home, voting early in person, and then voting on election day. So voting from home, Secretary of State Gorbea's office is going to be mailing out again a mail ballot application to all active voters. And the deadline for returning that to our office, meaning in-house, is Tuesday, February 9th at 4 o'clock. Those should be returned to the town clerk's office and not in the mail ballot drop box at the police station. That will not be open for application. So they actually have to come to town hall and drop them in the old-fashioned wooden drop box outside of our office, or mail them in enough time. We're also going to be having the early in-person voting emergency period, February 10th to March 1st. That is going to be taking place in the town clerk's office on the 2nd floor. Again, with the expected low turnout, we're pretty confident that we can handle it just like we did for the primary earlier this year. And then on election day, we're actually going to have a polling place open at Swift Community Center. That's our best location to do this type of work. So 3 options, vote.ri.gov. I can't push that website enough. If your constituents are asking you for answers to questions that you don't know, you can send them there. They can always call our office too. And then the items on the election are state bond questions, and I didn't know what they were until today. So if we keep scrolling down, this is actually going to show us. It's 4. Yep, here we go. So there's 7 questions, bond questions, totaling I think 400 million, and then with interest it's $641 million. So here's kind of a quick overview of what the questions will be. And then the rest of the booklet just talks about each question. This is just a great resource. It's posted on our website. It's on the town's homepage under popular links, and you can get to it that way. Really not expecting, anything crazy to happen. It's just, how people want to spend the state's money. So we're prepared for it. We're ready for it. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer it. Thank you, Wendy.
Questions for our town clerk? Are there any questions from the public? I think, is there a hand up? No, I thought I saw a hand up. It disappeared. Are there any questions for the public for our clerk related to the election? Any other questions from the council?
That was my hand up by, because I was
Okay.
cut out of the meeting, so they just put me back as full.
Okay. And we'll move on to item 7. This is a public hearing. We have our stenographer, Carol Malaga, joining us to make sure that we're all appropriately recorded. And item 7A is a annual renewal of alcoholic beverage licenses with ancillary licenses for the period of December 1st, 2020 through November 30th, 2021, for a long list of applicants. I'm going to rely heavily on our clerk and our solicitor here to move us through this section of the agenda. Basically, these applications were not complete at the prior town council meeting, where we considered applications for alcohol license and other vittling licenses. We now have a batch of licenses which are complete that we can vote on tonight. We'll have an opportunity for the public to weigh in on these applications because it is a public hearing. And there are some applications which still are not complete, and we will have to address those as well tonight. So I'm going to ask our town clerk to make some opening statements, and if Mr. Tights, our solicitor, would like to add anything, he can do so. And then we'll move on to review the completed applications. Ms. Carney.
You want me to take it, Lee, or?
No, I just maybe forming that motion.
Yep, I've got it ready for you.
Okay, I was trying to think of the best way to do this so as not to waste a lot of time, but I basically just wanted to go down the list and offer you up the names of the establishments with their ancillary licenses that are 100% in compliance at this point, and make one motion to approve those through the end of November for the rest of the licensing period, and then just a very small handful of others that are so very close. And I would just request that they would be given another brief extension to our next meeting with the subject to issuance if they do come into compliance during the next 2 weeks, which I have a lot of faith that they all will. I just didn't know how to really say that correctly. So so what I'd like to do now is just run through the list and give you the names of the establishments that are in full compliance so that you can consider making a motion to approve them for the rest of the year, and then perhaps maybe see if there's any public comments. So for tonight, I offer you for approval Frenchtown Liquors, Besos, Blue, Dante's Kitchen, Fresco, Greenwich Bay Oyster Bar, Kai Bar, Con Asian Bistro, La Masseria, Outback Steakhouse, Pal's Restaurant, Tea's Cafe, Pizza Heaven, Greenwich Hotel, and the Greenwich Club.
Would you like us to take those all first before we move on to the other applicants?
Yep, that'd be fine.
Okay, so the clerk has read the roll of all of the applicants whose application is complete tonight. Would any members from the public like to comment on any of these applications? Are there any comments or questions from the council?
I have one.
Mr. Donegan?
I just wanted to commend our staff and Lee, who has taken ownership over these last 2 years of this process. And it is I greatly appreciate that you manage all of this before it gets to us. And I am thankful that you're doing it. I have one other comment when we get to the ones who haven't complied, but for now, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, I agree. This is the way it's supposed to look. So 2 years ago, when you were toiling away, you've done the job, and we thank you for it. So do we have a motion to approve this group of applications? Councilor Corenthal makes the motion. I need a second.
Second.
Councilor Zarella seconds the motion. So we'll take a roll to approve all of the applications which are complete. Councilor Corenthal,
Aye.
Councilor Engelhardt,
Aye.
Councilor Donegan,
Aye.
Councilor Zarella.
Aye.
Mark Schwager votes aye. And so the motion carries 5-0 for those applications. So Lee, how would you like to proceed with the incomplete applications?
I think I would just like to read the list off to you and then lean on Solicitor Tights for helping craft the motion to give them a few more weeks, but allow, I guess, me to approve them if they do come into compliance within the next couple of days. Those establishments would be Circe Restaurant and Bar, Frank & John's Pizza, PB Bistro and Bar, Raku Sakura, Revival Craft Kitchen, Steve Filippo's Twisted Pizza, and the Waysider Grill.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
may I suggest a motion, subject of course for public comment and whatnot, but to grant the licenses for those 7 establishments until January 25th, 2021, and conditionally until November 30th, 2021, provided that all materials are provided in proper format to the clerk by noon on Friday, January 22nd, 2021.
So, well,
Therefore, they would have to get everything to her by Friday before the next meeting. And if they do, then they can be granted by the clerk. If not, they would need to show up at the next meeting.
so move. I know we have public comments still.
So we will open to public comment. Is there any discussion from the council, or maybe we'll hear public comment? Go ahead. Go ahead. We could start with council discussion.
Andy, what do we do if the applicants were supposed to do all this by November? Well before November. We've reached out to them. We've workshopped this 2 years running. And if they're just not complying, is your suggestion that we give this one last approval? If they don't show up with the required materials by that Friday, then what happens? Then it expires? Is by operation of the extension? Is that how that works?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's been a year. It was last year. It seems much longer, but it was really the fall of 2019 that we did all the 5 hearings lasting a couple of hours each with everybody in. helped establish all the baseline stuff. And this year, I would have hoped that we would have been able to be stricter, but certainly with COVID, these establishments are on a lot of economic pressure to begin with, and we didn't want to try to make things worse unnecessarily. Some of them I know, I called several of these places last week, and a few of them, they had mailed their checks to the Department of Taxation, and they just hadn't been received. And as someone, my office mailed a check from Providence to Lynn, Massachusetts. It was mailed on December 1st and arrived December 28th. So I can understand those problems. So we've tried to give people a bit more time. Without naming names, some of these people I think have been just negligent in making sure they've got it. Some of them thought they had uploaded things to the portal, but it actually hadn't uploaded. So I think we're, as the clerk indicated, almost there. And yes, my thought would be hopefully all these people can have their stuff by, we've given them almost 2 more weeks. They'll have it by the end of by noon next Friday. And then they're okay. If not, then they would show up at that night. And I guess that's when I would ask you to take the time, if they want to tell you their sob story, you can listen to it. If they don't show up at all, I would say, yeah, their licenses expire at that point. If they haven't done all they can to keep their licenses, this is their responsibility to make sure that they comply with all of the items that need to be done. If the check did not get through in the mail to the Division of Taxation, then you need to stop payment on the check and send another one FedEx and things like that. And many of these are just little things that are missing, stuff that needs to be updated from the previous year and hasn't been done. So that's their responsibility if they're going to be able to continue this valuable license.
Andy, how many of those are, the problem with not having your taxes paid is that the statute prohibits us from issuing a license.
Yes.
Right? So that's a problem. We're working with them to try to keep that going. But then the other challenge that some of them have had, and we all know who they are, have had challenges just actually providing the parking that they need in leases. Lee, is that playing a role here, or is it all the other checklist stuff? Nope.
Everybody's approval is based on their existing capacity and their existing parking plans that they had last year. Nobody has come forward with any changes.
And they've supplied the current leases that cover the upcoming year? Okay.
They have, yep.
Done
Those
most of the
are
work.
the things that Ernie has been reviewing. There are just a handful that are taxation, and I've been speaking to them on a regular basis. And there's a few that just have a few town taxes that are still outstanding, a small building issue. So it's nothing major. It's just,
Okay. Thank you.
just a couple little road bumps, but we'll get them.
So we do have a motion on the table. Prior to a vote, do we need to solicit public input, Mr. Tights, on this?
Yes, you do, because if they come up with everything, you're effectively granting it. So if anybody out there in the public has any problems with you renewing the license, they should speak up now.
Okay, thank you for that advice. So members of the public, this is your opportunity if you have to comment on any of these applications. If the paperwork is turned in before the next meeting, they will be granted. So seeing no questions from the public and no further questions from council, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second for the motion?
No.
I'll second.
Councilor Engelhardt seconds the motion. We'll take the roll call. Councilor Corenthal,
Aye.
Councilor Zarella,
Aye.
Councilor Donegan,
Aye.
Councilor Engelhardt.
Aye.
Mark Schwager votes aye. The motion carries 5-0. Do we have to continue the date? Do we have to give a date to the continuance?
No, you're fine. Go ahead, Andy, sorry.
Well, no, it was in part of the motion.
It was in the motion.
Okay.
I'll
you
incorporate
granted it.
that.
Right.
Did you have a
I
copy of
just, Oh, yeah, you're welcome. I just can't take all the credit. So kudos to Wendy and Elaine, of course, for helping me through this daunting process.
I'm sure.
Thank you, Wendy and Elaine. We
Alright.
greatly appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you. So whenever I see the clerk raise her hand, I'm always afraid that I've done the vote count incorrectly or some other procedural error, but it looks like we're okay tonight. And so the motion carries 5-0. So thank you for getting this piece straightened out for tonight. Thank you, Carol Malaga. We'll see you in 2 weeks, Carol, I think.
Thank you. Good evening.
This brings us to item 8, which is new business. This is a discussion and possible vote on the appointment of 2 counselors to serve on the East Greenwich School District Strategic Plan Steering Committee. So the school committee will begin to update its strategic plan. Seems like just yesterday, but they had completed their last plan in 2015. So it is time for them to update the plan. And the school committee chair and Ms. Musella had circulated a memo to the town council inviting volunteers to participate on their steering committee for the new strategic plans. So I would ask if any of the town council members would be willing to fill that role on the school committee strategic plan task force. I see Councilor Kornthal and I see Councilor Engelhardt.
Yes.
Yeah. People owe me.
I was
12 years.
I want something big after this.
I would say that we express our appreciation and we are sure that you will represent the town well
Yeah.
on the strategic plan. And, you know, on the council, we all graduate with a law degree. And after your school committee, you'll all have a degree in education as well. So you're becoming very well-rounded. So I would appreciate your stepping up, both of you. And I'd ask for a motion to appoint Councilor Karen Kornthal and Councilor Rainey Engelhardt as the town council's representatives on the school committee strategic planning.
I enthusiastically move make that motion.
Yeah.
I
Donegan,
had to take that.
I will second that motion.
Mr. Zarella seconds the motion, so we'll take a roll. Councilor Kornthal,
Aye.
Councilor Donegan,
Aye.
Councilor Engelhardt,
Hi.
Councilor Zarella,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Mark Schwiger votes aye. Motion carries 5-0. This brings us to our second opportunity for the public to comment on items either we've discussed tonight or items that were not on tonight's agenda. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment to the council? Seeing no hands raised, we'll move to item 10, which is council announcements and comments. If any councilors would like to make comments, we would have to add the comments to the agenda to comply with Open Meeting Act requirements. Is there anyone who'd like to introduce comments under this section? Seeing no hands, we'll move on to our next item, which is an executive session. We do have 3 items tonight on for 4 items on tonight for executive session. So I'd ask our town clerk to read the statute, which will allow us to convene an executive session. We'll take a vote. Then we will leave this meeting, convene on a separate Zoom platform. And when we conclude the meeting, we'll come back into public session to report out the results of the executive session.
Okay, so that would be a motion to convene into executive session per Rhode Island General Law 42, 46, 5A2 and 5 for the approval of executive session minutes from September 29th, 2020, October 13th, 2020, and November 9th, 2020, and per Rhode Island General Law 42, 46, 5A1 to discuss the job performance, character, or physical or mental health of a person or persons with regard to selecting a community services director, notice provided, and per Rhode Island General Law 42, 46, 5A2 pertaining to litigation, specifically Town of East Greenwich versus State Housing Appeals Board and Philip Ryan Homes, also known as Coggeshall Preserve, case KC 2001-91349, and also Rhode Island General Law 4246582 pertaining to litigation, specifically East Greenwich versus Med Recycler Rhode Island Incorporated, case KC 2020-0498, AAD appeal number 20-002/ARE, and PC 2020-07066.
Thank you. So I look for a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Motion by Counselor Donegan, seconded by Counselor Corinthal. We'll take the roll. Counselor Corinthal. Counselor Donegan.
Aye.
Counselor Engelhardt.
Aye.
Counselor Zarella.
Aye.
I vote aye. Mark Schwager votes aye. So we will reconvene in executive session.
Reno, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you email me the new one because my thing's still not working?
Yes.
Thank you.